Welcome to Out of Your Mind, near-death and out-of-body journeys, inspiring and uplifting conversations with those who have glimpsed beyond the veil. Get out of your mind and into your potentiality. With your host, clinical hypnotherapist, Biofield therapist, Reiki Sage Master, and Death Doula, Anjii Bryers.
David Ditchfield is an artist, composer, and author. In 2006, he was dragged under a speeding train in a freak accident. As the surgeons fought to save him, he had a profound near-death experience. He later realized that he had acquired astonishing new abilities. He found that he could now create dramatic paintings of what he had seen in the afterlife, compose classical music, and all of this having never received any formal training. His debut symphony was premiered at a sellout orchestral concert to a standing ovation. He has since composed further classical works and continues to paint and compose in Cambridge, UK. He's written a book that has come out this year and it is called Shine On. It is amazing and it's been reviewed beautifully by, people like Dr. Raymond Moody. We're so proud to have you on the show today. David, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me along.
You're more than welcome. Yeah. David, I would love you to tell us about the story of your journey and how it began. You were very down and just feeling uncomfortable in life, and you had an incident on the train station that day, and that was the beginning of a complete new world. So I'd love to just quietly sit back and let you tell us your story.
Yeah, sure. Well, you're absolutely right to point that out. My life before was a struggle, like it is for many of us. I'd left school without any qualifications. I'm dyslexic, and I didn't actually realize that at the time, but I am. And so I'd left school feeling like a failure, and I struggled to get through trying to find work. I moved to London. And I was living in London, and of course, like all capital cities, it's very expensive and competitive. So as much as I loved it, it also made it even more of a challenge for me to get through in life. I was picking up work, mainly blue collar work, general sort of manual laboring, which I was picking up on a day-to-day basis. And I actually realized that I wasn't actually good at that job either. I was looking around at these other guys, and they're incredibly skilled at what they do, very underestimated in this life. I'd watch them plastering a ceiling, and I go, wow, that's a work of art. How'd you do that? And I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't do it. So, I got to the stage where I was aspiring to people in London who were successful. And I wanted to be in that circle. I wanted to be part of it because it's kind of like I just felt, well, they were people who were working in things like the music industry, which appealed to me because I thought, well, they're making money and they're not academics. So why not me? But it was very hard to get into that whole field of life. I got to the stage where I was drinking quite heavily, in all fairness, because my life was about going down to the local pub, the local bar to hustle for work, because that's where all the guys hung out, all the site owners. And so I'd literally be drinking my day's wages away. And I was very much down on my luck, and I'd hit rock bottom. I really had, I got to the lowest point in my life, and I was broke. I got no money. And So my life was about to change basically because my sister turned around and said, look, why don't you come and hang out with us? She lived out in the country in Cambridge with her young family. And so she said, you need to get away. So I did. So I stayed there for a few weeks just to kind of just try and get myself grounded and rooted. And just a few weeks prior to that, I'd met somebody. I'd met her in a bar, a girl called Anna, and she was lovely. And we just connected. We just had this connection, nothing much more, and we kept in touch while I was there. So she came to stay. While she was she'd got to get back to London. So I took her to the rail station. And when we got to the station, I helped her on with her bags onto the train, and gave her a hug and a kiss. and we heard the emergency buzzers going. And as they went, she said, "You better get off." I was going, "Yeah, I'll go." You know, I was being a bit of a hero, I guess, and I just kind of like stepped back in my own time, and my coat got trapped in the automatic closing doors. And as they slammed to, I just couldn't pull it free, you know. And I thought, this is not good. So I turned around, looked for a guard, and there wasn't one on the platform. I yelled at the top of my voice for help, hoping that somebody would run through, but nobody did. There were automatic opening and closing buttons. I was whacking those. They didn't work. I tried banging the windows, nothing at all. So the engine started to rev up, and I looked into the eyes of my friend Anna, and I could just see a look of sheer terror. You know, the poor things had got to watch this whole thing unfold. And the train started to edge its way out, and it pulled out at tremendous speed. You don't realize how fast they pull out of stations. When you're inside the carriage, you just get your phone out and you start tapping away. You know, you don't think about it, do you? But when you're attached to the outside of it, believe you me, it's very fast. And I lost my footing. I got dragged along the platform, and then I was pulled between the platform edge and then underneath the train. And yeah, so it was a very terrifying experience because I was fully conscious throughout the whole ordeal. And interestingly enough, I put myself into survival mode, you know, which was interesting because I'd had time to think the whole thing through. I literally, well, like when I was stood there and the engine started to rev up, I actually thought, you know, I'm not going to survive this. And I remember thinking to myself, right, I remember seeing a news item where a young child had been thrown from a burning apartment block and from the third floor and had landed with no injuries. And they put that down to the fact that infants and small children don't tense up like we do as adults. So I thought, I'm going to do that. So I just relaxed my whole body. And so as I got pulled under, I just rolled under, you know, in a very relaxed state. So I'm sure that had an awful lot to do with saving me that day from that awful ordeal. But there was something a lot bigger than me and all of us that literally did save me. And
That's what I was going to ask you was, you know, a lot of people report, and I know that I've had it, you know, in a couple of my traumas, of that. Was there a point where you feel like someone stepped in and was there with you, like showing you that newspaper copy, putting these things in place and preparing you to be saved?
the point I did realize that there was something bigger than the whole story itself was literally as I went down between the platform edge and the train, the speeding train, and suddenly it felt like slow motion. I heard this huge rip, and then I dropped down. I mean, it's obviously a huge drop from the platform edge, but it seemed a lot bigger than that, a lot more dramatic. I remember seeing the carriage doors almost disappearing into the sky, and I suddenly felt like it was me, just flesh and bones, against this huge beast. It was no longer a train; it was now like this big mechanical beast that I was fighting with. And I thought, I'm not going to let you take me. And I knew that I was being given some kind of ethereal strength to pull me through this. So something, yeah, was definitely at play, and that's when I felt it at that point. But interestingly enough, I've since learned as well that I saw there's a guy called Dr. David Eagleman who does research into the brain, and he actually said that a lot of people, when they're in situations like me, when they're facing, you know, a possible death, that the brain, it doesn't slow down, but it's almost like it gives you like a panoramic sort of three-dimensional view of what's happening around you. Like, for example, the rail police, I asked them how long it took from the point of me going along that platform and under, and they said it was 13 and a half seconds. And I was going, what? I said, I thought it was more like minutes, you know, because it felt like minutes, but it was just that time was being stretched. So, yeah, that's what happened.
Beautiful. And your near-death experience was when you were at the hospital, wasn't it? You'd just spoken to
That's
Anna,
right.
your family were there, so you'd gone through all of that and you were conscious. It must have been incredibly painful. And then it was just when they were taking you in to operate on you that you
Yeah,
you
that's right. They got. I mean, they eventually, the help arrived very quick, and they jumped down the paramedics onto the track and managed to cut through my clothing and get me onto a stretcher. And then so we sped down the highway at full speed, and then we were all of a sudden we were there in hospital. There's a whole team of medics all waiting there for me, and I went in, and they all got to work. There was a lot of high tension and in their voices, and so I knew I wasn't out of the woods. I was still kind of quite fearful that I wasn't going to make this because I could hear that they were scared, and that wasn't good. But I still managed to lie there. Then my family did come in, as you say. They arrived, and Anna as well had arrived, which is amazing because I knew that the train had continued on; it hadn't stopped, and so she'd had to continue. I didn't even know where she was going to end up, but the police picked her up from the next station and brought her in, which was great because I was really keen to see her. I wanted to see my family. I had that moment of being wanted to be with them very much, and see them and have their love, and but my mother was in tears. She was crying and stuff. And it was interesting because like I said, I carried around a lot of guilt, and I always felt like the failure in the family. And I was turning around to my mom. I was going, "Mom, I'm so sorry. It's always me bringing the dramas into this family." And she was crying again. "No, it's not your fault," which of course it wasn't, And then I said, "I need to speak to Anna." So she came over, and Anna, and she was just shaking her head. She was going, "I can't believe you're alive. This is amazing," And she said, "I saw you go under. I ran through the carriage." And she said, and when you went under, she said, "I hope you don't not mind me saying this, but you just rolled under with such grace." And I knew why,
I remember hearing that in one of your, I think it was your interview with Sylvia Isaacs.
Right,
and
yeah,
I was
okay,
just
yeah.
I was just intrigued with that, of how gracefully you
Yes,
would have done that.
exactly.
And I
So
think
there
things
you
would have been
go.
slow motion for Anna as well. She would have been in a whole adrenaline rush, so
Oh
it
yes,
would have
yeah,
looked
totally,
quite
yeah.
balletic and
Yeah,
slow.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
incredible.
Well, so yes, so I anyway, I was waiting to go into theatre and stuff, and I was losing a lot of blood at that point because my left arm had been severed from the elbow down. So it was at that point that I was in the emergency department, and that I suddenly went from all the high tension and all the agony that I was in to a very calm and beautiful place. I suddenly had left my body, and I was in what seemed to be a lovely darkened room, but not a foreboding darkness, a really comforting and welcoming darkness. And I lay there, and I looked all around me to get my bearings, and I saw these beautiful pulsating colors that were all pulsating all around me. They're like lights. They were like sort of ambers and greens and yellows and orange orbs. And I thought, wow, this is beautiful. And I felt very calmed by those lights. And so I looked to see what I was lying on, because I knew that I was no longer on the hospital trolley, but now I was laid out on like this, like a huge slate rock. It was like a big medieval altar, and but it felt really comfortable to lie on. It was fine, And I noticed I was no longer clothed, but that was fine also because I felt comfortable, and I was covered in this blue sheet. It was like a satin sort of silky sort of texture to it, and that felt really
Yes, I've seen it in
comforting.
your paintings.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
so
Sorry.
thank you. Yeah, it was important to get that in, and the reflection that was coming off what there were the three grids of white light suddenly appeared above me, and so they were reflecting onto this sheet, and so I looked up at those. And I had put my head back, and I gazed into these grids of white light, which were very intense, pure white light, and the kind of light that would be too much to handle, on Earth, looking, or on the Earth plane, or looking into the sunlight. I couldn't do it, but with this I could, and with this light, it felt like I couldn't take my gaze away because it was just so, it was so, it was healing me. I could feel that there was a healing energy coming from it, so it was lovely. So I just lay there and was bathed in this beautiful energy, and then eventually I started to sense that there was somebody present. I thought there's somebody here. So I kind of lifted my head slightly and I looked, and then ahead of me was this person, this being of light who was like with this pure white blonde hair and this kind of skin that was glowing from within, and just wearing a simple black contemporary t-shirt, nothing too ethereal. And he or she, because it was a very like androgynous being, and this was just gazing at me, and I felt comforted by this person, and I felt like I'd known this person for a long time. I felt like, I know you, don't I? I was going, who are you? I know you, don't I? And she or he just kept smiling back at me and saying nothing. And I thought,
have you ever worked it out since?
Yeah, I've basically I've worked it out that being is the keeper of my soul, basically my higher consciousness, if you like. So
beautiful.
It's yeah. So that's what it is.
So that's why they were smiling, because it's like, I'm you.
Yeah. And I've been with you throughout your whole life and beyond. So yeah. So
sorry.
And I felt comforted as well. I felt that I was being protected, and I was being told it's okay. You're all right. Just relax. So I did do, and I just laid back to absorb more of this energy, and then I suddenly felt the presence of other people, and so I opened my eyes again, and then there were to my left and right there were two female forms this time, definitely female, and the one to my right was kind of like white European looking, I guess, with simple brown dress, long brown hair, and similar to yours actually, and then she was just had her hands hovering over my body, or as if to heal me. And then the girl to my left was more Asian Indian or American Indian in appearance. So I couldn't quite tell. There's a fusion of that, and wearing again like a beautiful traditional sort of outfit this time. And
yes, I love that painting too. Sorry, I love your painting.
Oh, great! No, please, intervene. Stop me whenever you want. But that's lovely, and and so I just felt that they were healing not just my physical wounds that I just had from that horrible accident, but I felt like they were healing my soul and healing all the pain and stuff that I'd been throughout most of my life. So that was really quite remarkable, because I sensed really that that while I was there, that the past didn't matter anymore. I was no longer feeling that, when I talked about when I was in hospital, that feeling of guilt with my mother. I didn't feel that when I was in this realm. That had all gone, and it was wonderful. I don't feel guilty anymore. I don't feel a failure anymore. The past was no longer important, and I didn't worry about the future either. I wasn't concerned about what was going to happen next, because I felt at that stage I was being prepared for something, but I wasn't sure what. But I was, and also I didn't feel like I was scared that I felt like I died. I thought this is it, that I'd passed on, that I hadn't survived it in the hospital. But there was no sense of trying to resist it. I went with it. I was happy to be there. It's not like I wanted to die, but I just was happy to be there, and I accepted it totally. Yeah, so it was interesting, because I did actually start thinking about my family at that point. I thought, well, my family, they're going to be totally distraught now, because they were in the hospital, and clearly they're going to be stood around me, that I passed on, and they're going to be really upset. So I looked over the edge of this huge rock that I was on, hoping to see them. And I looked down, and I didn't actually see them at all. But what did
you see when you looked down? That's what I've always wondered when I hear your story. What did you see when you looked down there? You didn't see your family, but you saw something.
That's right. I didn't see my family. I know that some people do when they have near-death experiences. They look down not so much on their family, but they look down on themselves being operated on, or what have you. And I didn't actually see that. But what I did see was this most beautiful, awesome sight. It was just it was like a huge waterfall of stars. It was like, the size of Niagara. Not that I've ever been to Niagara, but I know how immense that is. With just millions of stars cascading over the edge instead of water drops, and all those stars were just sparkling. It was just beautiful, and it was just very powerful. and it was like this. It was like a huge arc of stars, and there was shooting stars just dropping through the middle. So I looked right down, and as I looked down, I thought, wow, I'm not in a small darkened space at all. I'm in the universe itself, because as I looked, I could see from one galaxy into another, and I was looking into infinity. I was looking into beautiful colors, and that I've since seen, interestingly enough, that have been taken by the Hubble.
Hubble.
Yeah, and that they brought back images and over the last few years. And I actually was getting emails or text off friends and family saying, "Have you seen those new images? It's your paintings." I was going, "I know." So it's like it was brilliant affirmation, because I thought I was painting what I'd seen, and I was being led to paint these colors that I'd seen, and they were there. They were there. It's an amazing thing,
Incredible validation.
Yeah. So yeah, but really, what was about to happen next was even more powerful than that, if it could be, because I was just so excited by all this that I'd pulled myself back over and I was laid down, and I suddenly felt there was the energy that was coming from the healers, from their hands, which was love. It was just beautiful love that was coming from them. It's like the dial had been turned up big time, and I suddenly felt this energy was just like really now very strong, and I knew there was something more present. And so I lifted my head, and ahead of my feet and behind the first being of light that I talked of was this tunnel of white light. It was a huge tunnel that was just closing in on me, and there were the circles of flames that were just circling all the way around it, very powerful flames.
Is that the circle? Is that the tunnel that I recognized from your painting?
Yeah. I've tried to capture it in many ways, because it's very hard to try and
constantly moving and changing and evolving.
Yeah, exactly. It's constantly moving and changing and evolving, and the intensity of the white light was again present, but this time it was huge. But I felt the energy coming from it was just like so strong and powerful. So it's something that I'm continuously trying to sort of capture in either in paintings or by using sort of computer sort of graphics to try and it's just something I'm going to keep going at, because a lot of people will say you've had near-death experiences, is that it's not always easy to sort of get across everything that you see and feel in a near-death experience, because it's not like a dream or an illusion. It's ultra real. It's as real as you and I are chatting now, but it is a different dimension. It's kind of, so it's really hard to just try and say, right, this is how it is and this is what I saw, but I shall keep on at it.
And sometimes as you're saying it, you kind of like stop saying it because it sounds corny.
Yeah,
like mid-sentence.
Well said. That's it. Yeah, I try to avoid that. I don't want to get to a point where people are going to think, oh, hang on a sec, that's too good to be true, but it is, And
but that's a thing that thousands and thousands of near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences, people that have divine intervention all come across that. But a part of what this podcast is about is to create a platform where people can voice that in an open and inspiring discussion, because there's so many other people out there that aren't speaking because they feel so alone. And it's stories like yours and especially what you've come back with, I can't wait till we get to talking about that, is so inspiring for people, because so many people see it like I did. I had an experience, and I had described it in depth to my partner at the time. It wasn't until years later we saw that movie Contact, and I saw those tunnels, and my partner was in the theatre going,
yes,
as you described.
Exactly. Brilliant.
And the only other time I've ever seen that was, when you were going to come on as an interview, and I went to your website and had a look, and as soon as I opened your Facebook page, there it was, that tunnel.
Right,
and it was just, to me, it's like, he's been there. So many people will be so inspired about your work. And sorry, now back to
I
your
hope so.
story.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, that's fine. No, please, it's lovely what you're saying, because I often in the book I talk about it, that I compare a lot of this to there's a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind that came out and years ago, but it's very much like that, where in the movie there's the main characters are all living in different parts of the states and stuff, and they're trying to create this thing in their kitchens out of clay and stuff like that. They don't know why, but they're creating this mold of whatever. And so it's very much like that. We're all connected, and then when you see that moment of affirmation, and when you connect and you go, yes, oh my goodness, that's it. It's a beautiful feeling, isn't it? So when you told me that, I
it
was
almost
really
takes you
pleased,
right back to that moment when you went, oh my God, like you had a realization that you had that experience. It takes you back there. Like this week, I was back there as like, yes, it's like a confirmation and a validation and back to that feeling of like, this was real. Do you know what I mean? This is
exactly. Yeah. It's wonderful. I mean, for me, I've been talking to lots of people like yourself and doing lots of interviews and meeting other people who've had NDEs, and it's great because it's like, wow, you just feel like there's this community out there, and you feel like people are accepting it a lot more, which is great, because I think it's why not? But we don't talk about these things enough in Western civilization. We don't talk about death or the time of passing, and we should do. It's not like we should be discussing it all the time over our morning cornflakes or what have you, but we should address it, because we address everything else in life. Absolutely. Don't we? We address birth, we address getting married, we even sort of prepare for our driving tests and stuff, so why not this moment? Right, because it takes away the ultimate fear. Exactly, that's it. So that's something that's very important to me. So that's why I'm glad that it's the word spreading, and more people are talking about it.
Absolutely.
But so
you saw the waterfall of stars in the universe.
Yes, I saw the waterfall of stars. Yeah. Yes. And that's it. And then the moment of truth for me anyway was when I saw this huge white tunnel, and the energy that was coming from that was like unconditional love. And it was so powerful. It felt like every single molecule of my body was just like vibrating with this love. And it was brilliant. And it was just charging me with all the love that I needed to get, that I denied myself throughout my whole life. And I knew at that moment, because a lot of the information that was coming through was all telepathy. Was what I was looking at was this was the birth of all creation. This is the birth of all mankind, of the earth itself. The universe. This is God, and not in a human form, not like a guy with a beard.
Not a man with a staff and a beard and a
that's it. Or whatever our faith may be. They're not, all different forms. They're usually kind of some kind of human element to it. But this wasn't. This was God. This was a huge tunnel of white light with these dramatic flames that were circling. And so it was kind of like at that moment that I got that validation that I'd found God. That I put my head back, and I was laughing with joy and sheer happiness, that I suddenly found myself crashing back to earth into my body, and I was back into the whole pain threshold and the whole anxiety of the hospital, and the noise and everything was just like overload. It was just too much, but it was okay. It was all right. I mean, a lot of people say you must have been so disappointed to have been sent back, but I wasn't, because I'd just been to this amazing place. I'd been given all this information just in that moment of time that was so important for me. And I just thought, right, what's my quest? What is my mission? Why have they sent me back? Before I knew it, I was being wheeled into theatre to be operated on for 8.5 hours or whatever. So, but I didn't. So I had no regrets about coming back at all. I mean, I was just. When I came through from the anaesthetic, they'd given me my own room in the hospital. So I was lay there on my own in this darkened room, I remember, with this little R2-D2 machine bleeping next to me. And it was just me and the machine. And I was like looking at this machine saying, well, okay, what's my mission? Why did they send me back? And I lay there. And I decided almost there and then, I thought, I'm going to paint what I've seen. I've got to paint it because I've got to record it, because I didn't know about near-death experiences. I didn't know anyone else had anything like this. And so I thought I might forget it all. I was so scared. I thought I'm going to do a painting. I'd never done anything like this before in my life. So I thought I've got to do a huge, big Renaissance style paintings like the ones you see in the Vatican, like Michelangelo, that tell biblical stories or what have you. And I thought that's how it will be told. So that was a starting point for me, thinking I'm going to start becoming an artist and paint the whole thing.
And you'd had no experience as a painter, had you?
No, I mean, when I was a kid, I really enjoyed, drawing and stuff, and I was very creative, but I never took it any further because I wasn't encouraged to, because I was lacking so much in my academics at school that they just saw me as being. They put me, I was always on the naughty step, and I was never taken seriously, and they were trying to push me to go and work in the local factory or what have you. So, and I couldn't have taken it any further. You needed academics in the UK to go to art school and do a foundation course, they call it. So no, I couldn't go anywhere further. But I was suddenly starting to paint once I was well enough. Once I was out of hospital, my aunt was visiting from Canada, and she said, "I'm going to buy you a canvas." So she bought me this big canvas, and I got no excuse but to start. I mean, I was apprehensive. I was, because you don't come back superhuman. You come back and you've still got issues to deal with. I thought, I didn't want to mess it up. I didn't want to. This had to be right. So so I started it eventually. Some friends of my sisters run a local yoga and Pilates center, and they said, "Look, we've got a studio space that's free for a week upstairs in our attic. You can start your painting there." And I was going, okay. So I had no excuse but to start. And do you know what? Just in that first week, it started to come together. I was putting paint on that canvas, and it was starting to almost look exactly what I'd seen. I thought, wow, this is beautiful. And I say that this looks beautiful because I know that I was being helped to do this. I was being given like a crash course, if you like, on how to paint, how to use colors to bring, skin tones through, and all different and
so
perspective.
How did that feel? How did that guidance feel? Because like, I'm an artist, and a lot of people that are listening to this are artists, and one of the big questions I have for you is so many artists say it's really amazing. I don't really know what I'm painting until I'm finished, and then I can go, oh, and they feel it's not them, but they don't voice it because it sounds stupid.
And I didn't go into any form of like trance or anything like that. It was literally that I didn't think about it. I didn't overthink it. I didn't intellectualize it, and I just allowed whatever was happening on that canvas to happen. I was led to sort of to let the whole thing grow, and it was. I would sit back. I had this chair. I remember, and I used to sit down on the chair, and I'd look back at this canvas and look up at it, and I'd just go, "Wow," And I knew by then that I was being helped. So I'd go, "Thank you so much." I would just thank them, as I still do. Everything I do, I still know when I'm channeling, and I turn around and give out my thanks. And so yeah, it's just something that I've started to see actually in other people. It's just like I look at if you watch like a lot of successful musicians or whatever, really good musicians, they're in the moment, they're channeling. It's like if you watch Jimi Hendrix, for example, you watch Jimi Hendrix playing. I mean, well, it's not like he's not overthinking what he's doing at all. He's letting it come right through. It's like that guitar becomes a part of him. It's like an extension of him because he's literally channeling that energy through. It's like wow. And so there's an awful lot of that goes on when I find when I'm creating. And
isn't it interesting that when you've gone through something like that yourself, you can actually recognize others doing it?
Yes,
you may not have before.
Well, not at all.
Yeah.
I most certainly wouldn't have done because, I mean, like I say, my life was consisting of doing manual work. So, it didn't really come into my sphere. I wasn't really thinking about how others created. If I'd watched Jimi Hendrix before, I would have gone, wow, he's great, he's amazing. But I wouldn't have really recognized exactly how that was happening.
Yeah. It's recognizing an energetic space they're in, isn't it? Almost like, is that how we describe it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's recognizing that basically they're being in the moment, and that's how I would describe it. Because when I was talking earlier about when I was in the actual near death experience, and I said that the past didn't matter anymore, and I wasn't concerned about the future. Basically, that was it. I was in the moment, and I think it's really important. I try to make sure that I conduct my life that way now. You know, when obviously there's times when I get anxious about something that's about to happen or and stuff, and I have to say no, stop. You know, it's not. We don't know yet. The future does not exist. We don't know how things are going to turn out. So let's just look around and be in the moment and think, okay, I'm sat here now in my apartment, and you know the walls aren't shaking. Nothing's happened. I'm still alive. I'm fine. Just be in the moment. So that's exactly how I try and I don't try. That's how I find that all my creative energies are coming through. It's just by being in the moment. Yeah.
Beautiful. And have you been able to develop that into something you can teach others?
Well, yeah, I did it. In fact, I was invited out to the south of France last summer, and I went to it was a retreat that and all it was all female the people who had been invited, and they're all they were end of life doulas and soul midwives. So I'd never heard of that before. So that was a new thing to me, and it was lovely. It was amazing meeting these people. I was so humbled to be in their presence, you know, and they were really excited. I was like the end of the week. I was the last. They were going, "Oh, we can't wait for your day, you to talk on Friday," and I'm kind of going, "Oh no," but I'm just really humbled to be with you. You know, I'm not this special. Anyway, but they were really beautiful, special people, and so it, I spent the whole day with them really. So the morning was just me talking about my experience and playing my music and showing them my artwork and stuff like that. And then in the afternoon we had like a sort of we decided to have like like an open class, if you like, sort of where a workshop, you know. And so we were in this beautiful setting in the middle of nowhere. And so I set up this big table and a long table, and then got them all to sit down and got loads of, we ordered all this paper in and paints and stuff, and got them to sit down. And I said, look, I just want you to all paint what you think the afterlife looks like and what you think your guardian angels look like, or whatever you feel. And everyone sat down, and everyone was going, "But I can't do this. I haven't done anything since I was at school, and I was no good then." I said, "It doesn't matter. Just let it come through, and try and do exactly what I talked about in my talk. Let it come and channel through." And I'd never done anything like that before, and so I didn't even know what the results were going to be. But the stuff that came through was beautiful.
It was amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is as well is letting go of the ego. I mean, I know everyone thinks of the ego as being like, it's like, hey, you know, it's this big ego thing, but it's not. The ego controls an awful lot of our day-to-day existence, and doesn't need to. And so if you let go of the ego, then you know you will be able to go into the moment, and you will find that all these different things come through, and you can let go and let your organic self come through, which is the most important thing, because your most organic self is the most powerful thing that you'll discover that you've got.
Absolutely. And I can actually imagine that your music would take someone to that place.
Yeah, well, actually, funny enough, when we had the afternoon workshop, Holly, who was running the whole retreat, turned around and said, "Oh, maybe we could have your music playing while everyone's painting." And I said, "Yeah, okay, that's great." And so you know, I gave her the files, and we had this little portable thing out, and she said, "Oh, we'll just have it on repeat." I was going, "Oh no, it's going to drive everyone nuts," you know. But we did have it on repeat, and it didn't. It was, even myself, I wasn't thinking, "Oh, you know, let's stop this now, show." I was actually enjoying it. Worked just having it on rotation, just playing in the background. So and everyone said afterwards how it helped them to connect with their guides, and help them to paint and put their ideas through and stuff. So, but not only that, everybody walked away afterwards feeling great that they'd done this. Not like a sense of, look what I've achieved. It was like, oh, that was a beautiful exercise. I never realized that I was seeing or thinking that, you know. So So yeah, so, but music is most certainly. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you know, yeah, as I said, when I came back, I got this question, burning question: what's my mission? And I feel my mission has been to try and tell my story in as many dimensions as possible, and that through my music and through my art. So it's kind of like, once I started writing the music, I realized that that was now opening people up to be able to understand the whole journey in a different way, because obviously, you know, it's music and art are two different dimensions, but they're very connected. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
It's all part of, like, in my eyes, in my humble opinion, you have come back as a great master teacher, and you've been given all the
oh,
skills and
thank
the
you.
guidance, and as a portal to other teachers coming and working through you. And you know, my vision of what you're doing is this much the NDE, and this much the, oh my God, you've brought back a whole school of teaching that simplifies it and doesn't, you know, have people going to an ashram for 2 years and, or, you know, paying, you know, gazillions of dollars to listen to great speeches. You're
Yeah,
just like so many of us are just like, no, 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 it's actually just simplifying. It's
it is simple. Yeah,
just
yeah,
stand in the music and stand in
mm,
the thought, and there you are.
yeah,
And you have like to me, you just have such an enormous message, and there's so many, there's so many actually artists out there that that quietly speak behind closed doors of, is this what's, is something working through me, like, oh my God, am I, you know, am I overtaken by spirit, am I weird, am I crazy? And your voice is bringing a voice like right across the globe of like, it's actually okay to be artistic and spiritual, even if you're not spiritual, right?
yeah. Absolutely.
Does that make
Yeah, that's
sense?
it. Yeah, it makes total sense. That's
You don't have to be
beautifully summed
spiritual to
up.
be
Yeah,
spiritual
that's
in this
great.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's it. Um, it's yeah. I, d- I mean, I guess I look at my life, for example. I mean, how the contrast of it, and when I was, I'm like a lot of people, basically. Yes, I mean, I'm just, you know, a lot of people like me have gone through life, they've left school and felt like they're underachievers and haven't really fitted in and what have you. And I've met a lot of people since who've had issues with alcohol and stuff like that. And so they've turned around and said, oh, thank you for being so candid about it, you know. But
Yeah.
for me, it's just a natural thing. It's like, well, I'm not being candid about it. It's just, it's part of the story. So it's important for me to say that that's where I was then. And now my life is a lot more three-dimensional, because
Yeah.
not just because you don't have to go under a train or have a near-death experience to get to the point that I'm at. You know, it really is all about just finding that self-love and that self-worth. And when you find those, then you're able to stop and be in the moment, as I say, and allow things to come through. And you'll realize there are things in there, like those people in France didn't think they could paint, but they did. There were beautiful things there coming out onto those pieces of paper, you know. So we've all got it within us. We've all
That's
got
right.
something that belongs to us, that is authentically us, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And you know, people that like the people that are speaking to you that have had drinking problems and drug problems, they're speaking to you, which means they've been seeking, right? So they're seeking answers, and none of the right answers have come. And then they've met you, who've sort of said, yes, this is where I was, and this is where I came to. That actually provides for even those people a horizon of there is a horizon out there. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
before your near death experience, I imagine that your thoughts would have been, I'm never going to be anything because I'm never going to have the skills. I'm never going to move beyond myself and
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
sense of failure. And so
Yeah.
you imagine now, if you'd never had that NDE and you continued on, what level of rock bottom would have been your rock
Oh,
bottom for
I think by
growth?
now I would, yeah, yeah. I dread to think where it would have gone from there, because it was getting so bad. I remember, I mean, I was sat in my apartment in London, and I remember opening the fridge door one morning, and there was nothing in there. The only thing staring at me was a bottle of beer. It was just like and it was just that moment of desperation. And I remember actually praying that day. I was so desperate that I didn't really have any faith or anything, but I just put my hands together and prayed out of desperation for help. And And it's interesting because I look back now and I realize that when I was praying at that point, part of me was putting my hands up saying, please help me. But another part of me was putting my hands up saying, but I'm not worthy. This is all my fault. I'm a mess. I don't deserve this. So don't worry about me. That's what I'm saying. So I was kind of like, I was confusing the channels. And I think that's another important thing, that we need to get over that. We need to get over this sense of that, we feel, can I ask for help, please? I think just turn around and be open and speak to whatever your faith is, or whether your guides or your angels or God, and ask straight out. Just say, can you help me? If you've got something that's really, even if it's a small issue, if you're just thinking, oh my goodness, I think my car's going to break down tomorrow and I've got an important interview, don't worry about it. Just turn around and say, please make sure that I get to that interview tomorrow. Please help me, And I mean, when I ask for help, believe you me, I am humble, but not in the sense I'm going like, I'm not worthy. It's more like I'm saying, like if I turn around to somebody who was a beautiful person that could give me help, I would be humble to them. So I'd really like to ask your help, So yeah, we need to get past that. I think we need to get that.
I think so
sense
too.
of we're
Yes,
all
our
sinners and
sense
stuff.
of self-worth doesn't come from our birthright. It's trained within us, and it's at the basis of so many problems, and it's the basis of walking out there and being a floating victim for people that need energy, and they'll see those people coming.
That's it.
And the stronger we can be within ourselves, just comfortable with ourselves. I think that one of the greatest things people can learn is that you actually don't need anyone else in this life. And I think that's something that coronavirus is also teaching, is that,
totally,
so much of our life and our society is based around what other people think and what other people see, and the perceptions of our communities in ourselves. Whereas, if it was just ourselves, we take pride in the way we dress and the way we walk in the world, and our home and our garden, but we wouldn't be there going, oh my God, my sister's got a better house than me, now I don't like her because she thinks she's clever, and it just is this rumbling bass at the bottom of so many things. And I think just sort of like, my grandmother taught me, when I was young, she said to me, Anjii, she said, I've done a lot in my life, but sort of not. And she said, I'm working in a nursing home with people that are dying. And she said, I've always thought, if I get old and in a nursing home and I'm pooing my pants and I'm, dribbling and I've lost my mind, she said, I wouldn't mind that. But she said, the greatest fear for me is that I lose my functions and my ability to communicate, and inside my head, I am clear. She said, that to me just seems like the ultimate prison and the ultimate hell. And she said to me, you need to go out there in this life and you need to live this life and have all of these adventures and just go out and do it. Don't do the norm. In New Zealand, you get married, you have 3.5 kids and you work at the post office and she was just fly, and treat every day like it's your last, because the thing that holds people out in their active dying stage is regrets, and generations of people that haven't talked to their sisters for 20 years because of a stolen hairbrush, or these things hold people out from dying. And so living every day, every day I go to bed at the end of the night and I lie down there with all my dogs that have been abandoned here and my cat, and I look at my day and I think, no regrets, I'm good to go. So,
Yeah.
And it's just such a great way to live. And it also helps keep you in the moment, doesn't it? Because, you understand the absolute importance of that now. And it's not being in the moment and not having goals. It's actually being in the moment and being present and understanding the bigger picture of what's in the moment.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah, absolutely. But also that thing about, you're talking about your grandmother there. It's, I feel that it's not only important to sort of, get out there and live your life, but also to sort of make sure that not make sure, I never like saying you make sure, but I feel it's important anyway to try and connect with people. I mean, a lot of people close to us, whether they're friends or family, we can, when we're that close, that we can have the biggest rows and we can hurt them each other the most, you know. And I think it's really important to try and make our peace with those people who are close to us, and make sure that we tell each other that, you know, we know that no matter what, we do love each other, you know, and that's really important. You know, I lost my mother last year. She passed away, and interestingly enough, she got Alzheimer's. So he was the opposite way around. Physically, she was really strong, you know, but her mind was the thing that was breaking down on her, if you like. And she'd had a heart attack anyway in the afternoon, and so I remember going into hospital, and it was me and my sister spent the evening with her, and we spent that whole evening just chatting. I remember just sat there with my mum, and I was sat at the side of the bed, and we just kept telling each other how much we loved each other. You know, we always used to anyway, but I just kept saying, "Mum, I love you," and she's going, "I love you too." And you know what's interesting is that her Alzheimer's seemed a lot more like it was hardly there that night. It's like it was just like the doors had opened up, and it was like we were given this moment where we could express our love for each other. And then the next morning I woke up and I got a call from the hospital, and she'd had a massive heart attack, so I knew that was it. But it was okay because we'd had that closure. We'd had that moment of just like expressing our love, and that's great for me. There was no sense of going away thinking, I never really got to tell my mum how much I loved her because she had Alzheimer's or what have you. You know, it was
Absolutely.
It was resolved. Not that it needed to be resolved, but it was just a lovely moment that makes me accept.
As a death doula, that happens almost always in long active dying death. That they come back to a sense of lucidity, and it's really a beautiful thing. And you know, they have a medical term for it, but I just like to think of it as a gift of the angels.
Oh yeah, totally. You know? Me too. Yeah,
it's just a gift. I love it.
Oh, and that's interesting. You should say that. Yeah, that's interesting. You've come across that a lot. Then that's great.
I find it just incredibly beautiful, and to me, just another testimonial that we are never alone on that journey.
No, not at all. I mean, I knew that with her when she passed. I just, you know, obviously I went through the physical and mental loss of my mother, but I knew where she was. I remember I was in the hospital and I was just on my own with her at that point, and my sister had just left, and I would just turn around, and when she died and when she passed, and I said, "Well, you're going to love it where you're going now, Mum. I just know you're going to love it," you know. And it's kind of like, so I felt that moment of, for me, that was a great help for me to know where she was going. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. Have you connected with her since?
Yeah, a lot. I feel her presence with me so much. Yeah, she's totally there. So which doesn't surprise me because that's very much part of her character. So yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And with your music, you have so you started writing music that was. Is it music that you started off with that you heard on your journey over there, or that reminded you of the feeling of the journeys?
No, it came through later. Yeah, it wasn't music I heard over there at all, actually. What it was, I'd started going to spiritual healing, and in those spiritual healing sessions, I'd get clairvoyant messages would come through at the end sometimes, just short ones, just saying what they were picking up. And in this one or 2 weeks, they were saying, "I'm picking up, a violin laid across your chest. Can you tell me why that is?" And I said, "No idea whatsoever." And then one of them turned around and said, "They're telling me that you're going to write some music based on your experience." I thought, great, okay. So I went home, and I got this old cheap synthesizer that was like been up in the attic, and I got that down, and I was just trying to. It came through in one evening, one night. It was in a dream form that I'd heard these notes, and they came through. So I played them in and recorded them onto an old cassette recorder, and I thought that sounds beautiful. And I knew again that I was being helped because I thought it sounds lovely. This is not just me that's written those chords, and so I just developed it from there, and I just kept working on it. And I just thought, this piece of music they're asking me to write is. This could be performed by an orchestra. This is like something much bigger than just say a small 3-minute song, which I thought it was going to be. And so I just developed it up, and I'd made friends with a cello player who used to come up and see my paintings at the yoga center. And we used to meet for coffee, and she said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just working on this piece of music." I said, "I reckon it should be performed by an orchestra." And she said, "Oh, well, maybe we could perform it." And I thought, that'd be good.
Beautiful.
So I thought, I'm going to hold you to that. So I did. And my brother gave me like this software that I could use, that I could plug into my laptop. And it meant that when I played the notes on the synthesizer, it would transpose it into musical notation, because I can't read or write music at all. Not to this day.
So, and you had no background. You'd played in a band with your mates.
That's right. Yeah, I played guitar, but it was like thrashing out 3 chords. It was just thrashing out 3 chords in a band. Nothing at all like writing a symphony. Believe you me. I mean,
have you got any pictures of you rocking out on the guitar at all? I'd love to put one of them up at the end so people.
I'll have to think on that one. But
beautiful.
I have though. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that was me. I used to rock it out, as you say that, but. No, believe you me, I mean, I've met conductors, I've met top musicians now, and I say to them, "You must have written plenty of pieces yourself." And they say, "There's no way. To write music for an orchestra is a massive, complex thing. You have to study this, and then what you're doing is just remarkable, And so so that started to happen, and the orchestra agreed to perform it, and so that started. I'd only written the first movement to start off with, and I got 2 more to write, but it didn't matter because I knew it was going to come, and it did. And by the time the first rehearsal came around, I remember turning up at that rehearsal, and I walked in, and there was an orchestra all performing there. They were already rehearsing, and I just thought, "Oh my goodness, this is me walking in." I remember the conductor turning around saying, "Right, the composer is here," and I thought, I'm not the composer, and stuff, and he said, David, I know, but he said, "Come and talk about your piece." And I said, "No, that's fine. You guys just go ahead." He said, "No, come on." And I thought, it's very daunting, because an orchestra, they're very sort of middle class, highly educated people, and I just thought, I'm a working class guy, and I'm out of my depth here. But once I started talking about it, and I explained it was about my near-death experience, everyone was really captivated. I thought, this is lovely, So they started playing it, and I'll never forget those, when the conductor's baton came down and those chords came in. Wow, it was just those 3 chords that I first played on that little cheap synthesizer were now this 3-dimensional sound, huge. Yeah. Exactly, it was like the best stereo player you could hope for, and there I was listening to it all played back, and I thought, yes. I've done it. I pulled it off, And the concert itself sold out 2 weeks in advance, because again, I knew I was being helped, but this time I was being helped to bring the energy in, to bring people into the seats. I started off. They said, "Can you do like a short interview with the local press?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Just a few lines, they said. So I started talking about it. And of course, the local press remembered me in the news. They said, "Oh, you're the guy who went under the train. Oh, this is going on the front page." And so from then on, the phone started ringing, and the BBC came to interview me and film me at the rehearsal. So that's when it started to sell out. So
that's your guides working for you too, isn't it?
Exactly. They most certainly were. And I knew they were as well. So they wanted to make sure that event happened, and it was a beautiful, beautiful night. Yeah.
It's life-changing. Like it's really just so inspiring for so many people. People are at the end of their rope. They're at the end of their hope, and they haven't been taught in our society in the last 2 generations that there is more. They're not. So many people are unaware that they are so much more.
Yes. Absolutely.
And things like this just help inspire them. So how would you suggest to someone? So say, for example, someone sitting here that has just had a sense of hopelessness all their life. They've had, trauma and financial issues, and they are just like I believe inside that I'm someone and I don't know who that is,
Yeah.
without having an NDE.
Yes.
How would you advise someone to go about learning this?
Well, first of all, if you are literally at rock bottom, then I would advise you to get help as well, because I mean, I had because I had post-traumatic stress disorder after my accident, so I also did have help from a counsellor, and that is brilliant, because you need that support. You need that to be able to help you to understand the dynamics that you're personally going through as an individual. But once you've got that support, make sure that you just try and don't just walk out of that session and say that was good. And when you come home, try and remember what's been said, and try to stop and give yourself some self-love, give yourself that self-worth, and almost hug yourself, give yourself a hug, and there's no, if you suddenly get home, we all get home, we think, oh, I haven't got time to do that, I've got to go pick up the kids now, or I've got to go, oh no, I've got a meeting. But we have got time. We've got time just to sit down, even if it's just for 10 minutes, to give ourselves that space and just close our eyes and give ourselves that self-love. And you'll start to get in touch with your authentic self, the real you, not the ego, not the person you think you should be or aspiring to be. Get in touch with that real you. And once you get to that real you, that's the starting point. And that's when you'll start to discover new things that you can do and that you can create for yourself in your life, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be painting or music. It can be anything that just happens to work for you. You might just suddenly decide you want to start working with animals or start doing the work you're doing. It's just, you might not have thought about that before, but all of a sudden it will come to you. That's what I feel.
It does. Yeah. And just believing that you are more, and asking for it, like you said,
Yeah.
help me find the way, if I open my eyes, will you show me where it is? And then just sit in that, and try to be the best you can be. And I think calming, I think one of the biggest things that I teach people, and it's one of the hardest things, is to stop worrying, you know
Yeah. Yeah,
shitload of
exactly.
vitamins B6 helps, but a lot of it is just like, if am I dying? Is anyone dying from this? Is it going to, then let it go, because it's of no value.
Yeah, well, I
I had a
mean,
horse say to me, I had an angry horse say to me, that was trying to communicate with its owner who couldn't communicate, and this horse was raging, and it was so much so, it was actually in this place here, and I had some girls living here with me from the Portuguese embassy at the time, and one of them came in and said, "Is that horse Tessa here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And she said, "Oh my God, it's like she's galloping down the hallways." And I'm like, "Oh, cool." So this horse is really angry, and it's saying, "What possible thing do humans have to gain from carrying all this stuff around with them? I don't get it. I don't understand it."
mm,
Like it was just like, animals cannot understand why we carry
yeah, but
our
that's it.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
it's
this animal
absolutely.
could clearly see how that was all it was in the way of communicating with her owner, you know? And actually once the owner just did clear that stuff away, it was just like that.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, that's it. Animals, the rest of the animal kingdom or what have you, birds and fish and every living thing,
Yeah.
they just live on their instincts, on their natural instincts. They don't. We're the only ones that allow ego to
Mm.
sort of control our lives, and intellectualism. I mean, it's great that we've got intellectualism. It's fantastic, but I mean, what's happening now? With the pandemic, it's like, for me, it's like I saw an awful lot of panic at the beginning, and there's an awful lot of panic returning now. But it's just, I just kind of figure, allow yourself to go with that as well, because it's like, once that panic settled down, people were like stripping the supermarket shelves of toilet rolls and all crazy things, because they just thought, oh my
Same here.
goodness,
Yeah.
this is
Same
it,
in Australia. Yeah.
yeah, this is bonkers, isn't it? And I just remember thinking to myself, well, just let it, let it go. It's just like, this has happened. It's all part of evolution. It's all part of Mother Earth. Mother Earth is a living sort of organ as well, and it's just like hurting at the moment, and so it's asking us to stop being so crazy, and just calm down. And we don't need to be these high achievers, and that's what it was given as a moment of. Because at first I thought it was brilliant when once that initial panic settled and people were like turning around saying, oh, I'm baking my own bread at home now. Oh, I'm teaching my kids. It's great.
Exactly.
I'm painting, and drawing and enjoying nature, listening to the birds. I thought, wow, this is brilliant. At last, people are now stopping and they are allowing themselves to be in the moment.
Absolutely. And when's the last time you've seen an anti-Muslim, rant on your local Facebook page? They've just gone. We don't see things of the Kardashians every 24 hours.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's everything has shifted, and it's so interesting. I mean, still people are turning around now and saying, "Oh, we just, they're interviewed on the news, and now they're saying, oh, we're just sick of it now. We just want to get back to normal." And it's like, how can you say you're just sick of it? It's not like a big experiment that you've been pushed through, and there's no going back to normal. It's like life is evolving, and it's like, why don't people realize as well that this has happened throughout the whole of history. There was the bubonic plague, there was the Spanish flu, but even going back further than that, there were bigger things. There was the ice age that wiped out the dinosaurs. It's just part of Earth's evolution, and we should just allow it to just evolve. And we're very lucky. We're not in. It was worse when people had the Spanish flu and the bubonic plague, for example. People suffered a lot more then than what is doing. We've got the internet now. We can all connect via Zoom and chat to our families and stuff, and we shouldn't be worried about it.
We should be grateful. Yes, this just had the most wonderful time today. I am so grateful to have met you. You are an inspiration to so many people. And look, I have 1,000 other questions, and so much of it is about people that are seeking and looking for people like, they've grown up in a world where there are no mentors, there are no guides, there are no horizons. There's just darkness, and this is what this is about. And the other thing that this is about, this podcast, is it's for people that are terminal, and if you could imagine now in closing that we had sitting here with us someone that's just been diagnosed as terminal, and they don't have a spiritual background or a background that, boding them well right now. And they understand that they have a very short time frame. What would your advice or your guidance, or what would your words be to them about the journey ahead and how to face it? If you were standing, holding space for them.
What I would say to them is first of all, most importantly, not to be scared. Don't fear death. I don't fear it at all now. And to remember that the soul is an incredibly powerful entity, and our souls are really strong, and that the soul continues on. That death is only the next stage. It's like, yes, okay, our bodies switch off like a light, and they decay, but our souls continue on, and they continue on to a really beautiful place, a really incredibly beautiful realm that I personally felt happier than I'd ever been in throughout my whole life. Once I got there, it was just beautiful, and that's because all the layers of oppression and guilt and stuff that I carried throughout my life had all been stripped away from me. And the pure essence of your soul that you will meet on the other side is just you, and you'll be so happy with what is you. All of us do, no matter what. And it's try not to hang on. I mean, I know that some people do. I've also, since I've been doing interviews, I've heard of other people who've tried to resist their passing, and I don't actually think it's a good idea, because it's only going to be a struggle for you. And I just let yourself go and you'll know when the time is right, or you'll be guided when the time is right to let go, and don't be scared of that. And that's what I would say. It's really going to be beautiful. Yeah.
And if you were speaking to their the loved one that's watching over them through the journey and nursing them through it. With like so many people that are actively dying have, visions and visitations and things like that. What would you say to those people about caring for someone that's passing? And, like your mum had Alzheimer's and that journey
Yeah.
with her, and how you best support.
Yeah, well, the same thing is not to try and, of course, we want, I'd love to have had my mother with me as long as possible, but I just kind of accepted that she got Alzheimer's and that her ending was inevitable. It was just that it was going to come, because it comes to us all, and I didn't try and hang on to her. I didn't try and keep her. I got a phone call in the morning from the hospital, and it was a very frantic sounding doctor saying, I think your mum's had a very dramatic heart attack. And I was going, that's okay. And I felt calmer than he did, because I was accepting that this was it, and that she was going to go. So I didn't try. I let her go as well. I didn't try and hold on to her. I didn't say, oh, please God save her, because I thought, no, this is her moment. This is her time. It's time for her to leave. It's time for her to move on. And I was totally accepting of it. And
do you think by allowing her to do that, it eases that journey for her?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important, because I think it helped her along with her journey. I remember I spent some time, as I say, where I spent with her after she'd actually passed. We all went in to say our goodbyes to her, and behind the curtain in the hospital ward, and I just went over and I just kind of like just straightened her hair up for her, and just because she was always very proud of her appearance, and then I just. Then I said, as I said earlier, that I said, Mom, you're going to love it where you're going. And just leant over and kissed her and just said goodbye. And I felt that I was helping her on with her journey. I was just helping her soul to finally leave her body and to go on to the next realm and to enjoy it. And I do feel that
I get a picture almost like a father giving the bride away at the wedding. That's the picture that I was just showing in my head lovely. Of like, yeah.
Yeah, it was also very much a connection of at that point I'd suddenly remembered I felt like I was with the mother that I'd been with when I was a child. I felt like a child, and I felt like the mother that brought me up, rather than the mother that was confused with Alzheimer's. And it was like our two souls connected at that point, And so that was like. In fact, it was interesting, because just as I'd kissed her on the forehead, I just kind of, as I was about to pull myself up, I felt like a jolt in my heart chakra, and it was like a connection between us both, and it was like, whoa, that was lovely, So that connection was very, very powerful, and I do feel that helped her on. So I would also advise that with everyone, just let your loved ones go and trying to help them on with their journey.
Yeah.
And you'll feel really good about
it. Things like
it.
Reiki and making a space where they feel that you are allowing them to leave, and just gentility and permission.
That's it. I'd watch when I was in the south of France. They actually did like a sort of mock sort of because the people who ran it were these people who ran they were in sort of. Yeah, but they also there were people that actually ran it were actually ran their own sort of firm of I'm trying to think, not undertakers, but that they're and the ceremony that they do is really lovely. The way they close the body down and clean the body with oils and stuff like that to send it on. So I'd remembered all that. So I was doing a bit of that with my mum. I was just kind of like doing a bit of Reiki down her body and just helping that energy to move onto the next plane. So there was a bit of that going on with me. Yeah.
Beautiful. I can't wait to hear that you're a working healer and adding that to your great bow of things. I'm looking forward to flying over to Austria and being on a horse farm and doing one of your art classes.
Brilliant.
Your music across the hills.
Oh, wow. That'd be all right, wouldn't it? That'd be good.
Absolutely. Now, look, I really loved your book, Shine On. I read the first chapter, and it's available for anyone to download. And the book, it was just beautiful. Already I was tied into the emotion of the story and the understanding of the space that you were in. You're a great writer, and you worked with a friend who wrote it, didn't you? You
Yeah,
expressed your story and she placed it into form.
that's right. Because of my dyslexia, I wouldn't have been able to have written a whole book. It's something I wanted to do right from the off, but I'd never thought would happen. And again, she was guided to come back into my life, and so she's done an amazing job on it. So yeah, so that's it. That's yet another dimension to explaining the story. So that's the book that's out now, and it came out in June, and it's doing really well. It's picking up some really beautiful reviews. So that means that people are connecting with that. So I'm really pleased. So yeah, you can get it. You can, wherever you are, you can order it through Amazon quite easily. So it's called Shine On. And so if you just type in Shine On and my name, David Ditchfield, you will find it. So
fantastic. And you've got some of your music on your website.
That's right, yeah. So you can stream the first symphony that I talked of, which is called The Divine Light, and you can listen to that for free. So my website is shineonthestory.com, and if you go on there, you can also look at my paintings, and you can get links to my social media if you want to follow me on there to see what's happening and developing in my life. Please do.
I just want to play for everyone so that they can hear it uninterrupted. The Divine Light, which is the first movement of the music you wrote, and it's played by the Cosy Chamber Orchestra of St. Ives. David Ditchfield, thank you so much. It's been an absolute honor.
Oh, thank you, Anjii. It's been great chatting with you. Really beautiful.
Thanks for listening. Anjii is available for clinical hypnotherapy specializing in PTSD, trauma release, and active living and regression therapy via Zoom. To book or find out more about online workshops, you can contact her at anjieb@gmail.com or visit her Facebook page and YouTube channel, Anjii Bryers Biofield Therapy, or go to her website, canberraholisticcenter.com, spelled with a W. If you like this podcast, don't forget to review, like, and subscribe.